Good morning, guys. Today we are working to analyze an author's evidence. So our reading objective is being able to refer to details and examples in the text to explain what the text is saying, and even more so, explaining how an author uses reasons and evidence to support the particular points in a text. So we're really looking to see, when we're reading something, is it good information? Okay, this word here is reliable. Reliable means, can I count on what they're saying to be true? And when we're answering things and talking about things, already this year we've talked about how we're not the expert. So if I borrow information from a text to use to support my point, I need to make sure that I give credit to the expert. So when we're reading, is the author drawing on evidence to support that what they're saying is reliable, that we can count on it, that they know what they're talking about, so that we feel comfortable using that same evidence in our writing? So when I'm reading a text, a good author will provide evidence to support the points they're making, just like as a writer, you use evidence to support the points you are making. A strong reader analyzes the evidence to decide whether or not the article is reliable. Is this something I want to use in my writing? And this is really especially important. Right now, we're working on our journal entry for as writing a narrative, as if we were in a natural disaster, and we're giving our readers information about what happened, what relief program came to assist us. So as we are writing our journal entry, we are wanting to use evidence from the story solving problems. And so before we do that, we want to make sure that solving problems is a reliable article. An example of this would be in our solving problems story. We have in paragraph 2 the main idea, which is the first sentence. Federal, state, and local governments often work as a team to solve problems. And then the author says, for example, do you remember our evidence terms notes that we made last week? For example, because, those were words that we use when we're going to give evidence to support our main idea. So we have a chart today, and we're going to work on this chart a little bit together, and then you're going to finish the last two by yourself, and then I want you to bring them to class. So work on it by yourself after you've watched this video. Bring your evidence for these last two to class. All right, so over on the left-hand side, we have the author's point. I'm going to backtrack real quick. My students, I want you to fill in the last two by yourself. Ms. Corbin's students, she will do those two with you in class. Let me restate that. Okay, so we have on the left side the author's point, and our job is over here under the evidence column to provide evidence from the text. Now, this is what's really cool. I think you're going to find that the evidence we've already located when we were analyzing and reading the text together, because we're good readers, and good readers do that. So it's going to be a little exciting to see how easy your job is this morning. Okay, so the first author's point is the people are represented at different levels of the government. So you're going to look in your text for where we talk about people representing levels of government. And if you notice, let's see if I can fit it all in here, to the left, we've already made that note. This whole paragraph talked about the levels of government, people voting and people representing that. So I already know I've probably identified my text evidence. So when I look over to the paragraph, I see the sentence, these members represent the people at the different levels of government. That was the author's point in my chart that I'm supposed to find evidence for. So this was I'm going to put AP for the author's point. So we're looking for the evidence to support that. And if you look, we already have the evidence highlighted and underlined. We said we have local governments, state governments, and federal governments. So I'm going to use my yellow highlighter just so you can see the difference in today's notes and last week's notes. So here we have it. Local governments make choices about how to run towns and cities. State governments make and enforce laws for the states. And federal governments make and enforce laws for the nation or the whole country. So when I go back to my chart, I'm going to put word for word what that author said. Okay, so I have local governments run towns and cities, state governments make and enforce state laws, and then the federal government makes and enforces national laws. Easy peasy, right? That's what happens when you're a good reader and you do all of your annotating. All right, the next point is all the levels of government can work together to solve problems. So let's go back to our text. Oh, look, my friends. Government works together to solve problems. Right? It's kind of cool. Okay, so here's the author's point. The author's point, that main idea, is that federal and state and local governments often work together as a team to solve problems. There's my author's point. Now we have that fancy schmancy evidence-based term. For example, after an earthquake or flood from a superstorm, people might need food or shelter. They might also need help rebuilding homes. Roads and bridges may need fixing. And there's our examples that go in our chart. So I'm going to go back to my chart. I think y'all can see my shadow. It bothers me. And in my chart, I'm going to add in my evidence column, after a natural disaster, people need food, shelter, and help rebuilding homes. Oh, and we can also, that last sentence, the governments work together to solve economic crisis. Okay, or they work together when a natural disaster strikes. So I want you to notice that here we did combine those three sentences into a compound sentence so that we could reduce as much as we're writing. But it's very important that you're not necessarily changing what the author says. So it's easier to combine them, but make sure that what you're pulling and putting in here is what the text says. So what you guys are going to do is you're going to look for these last 2 points on your own. My kids, I want you to find these statements in your text. And then in the box over here, I'm going to share this with you. You'll have it attached to this video. You're going to fill in the evidence from the text. During an economic crisis, a state can ask the federal government for support. And the decline in shellfish hurt Washington State's economy. When you find these 2 sentences, you're going to look for the evidence where they give you the proof that this is a true statement, that this is a true statement. And you're going to type it in the boxes over here to the right. And when we come to class today, be prepared to share your thoughts and your ideas. Miss Corbin's students, you guys will do that with Miss Corbin. Okay? My kids, also be prepared to work on your writing when we come to class. I'll see you guys in just a bit. Have a great morning.